Hello everybody, this is a Saucy Wench. I am going to be making my first ever video on this type of topic, and it is going to be my killer tier list for the 5.0.0 patch. I will not be including the Cenobite since I have not played with him yet, so I do not have an opinion. This is just my personal opinion. You may disagree, you're probably going to disagree. And the way that I did this was I gave each killer a scoring between 1 and 5 on 3 different categories. The first category was their power. The second category, or pretty much power, how effective it is, how powerful it is. Second category is how much map pressure a killer has, and the third category is how good the killer is in a chase. So each killer can get up to 5 points in each category for a total of 15 points. I've already gone through the list and I've already made the ranking, and I will explain my scores for each category as I go through each killer. So let me go ahead and get my notes out, and let's not waste any more time. Oops, sorry, I did not mean to bring that up. Let's go ahead and get going. First, we have 2 killers with the lowest score of 7 points. Whenever there's a tiebreaker, I will be making a judgment of my own and putting them in the order that I personally agree with. So starting off with 7 points in total, could have probably guessed it. Clown. I gave him a score of 2 for his power, a score of 2 for his map pressure, and a score of 3 for his chase potential. I do not believe his power is very strong, only because it basically just helps in the chase. Even with his new yellow gas, it still doesn't give him much, because at this point, all you're doing is throwing yellow gas on one end, pink gas on the other, and then just catching up with the survivor. Sometimes, and it doesn't always work. If a survivor just drops power early, then your power is pretty much useless at that loop. So that is why he's received a 2 for his power. Map pressure, most of these killers are going to have 2 for their map pressure just because of the way they play. He has nothing to help him. The only reason he didn't get a 1 is because of his yellow bottle. And then 3, like I said before, he's okay at chases. He usually will either get the down, or the survivor will drop the pallet early and then run to the next loop. But like with all this, he scores a 7 overall. The second killer to also score 7 points is going to be Trapper. I think he beats out the Clown just a little bit. So for his power, I gave him a 3. For his pressure, I gave him a 2. And then for his chasing ability, I gave him a 2 as well. For a total of 7 points. I gave him a higher point count for his power than the Clown because while it doesn't directly help in a chase, if you play right, it will, and you zone the survivors correctly, his power can be very annoying if survivors aren't paying attention or don't to where the traps are, or if they don't already know where the traps are. He's got about the same map pressure as Clown, and then his chasing, he's just average, sometimes below average, because when you stop, the only thing you can really do is either chase like normal or put a trap down and wait for the survivor to run to the next loop. It's kind of how his chases go. Anyways, now we are moving up to the section of killers that got 8 points. There are 3 of them. At the bottom of the 8 points, I'm going to be giving it to Pig. Pig scored a 3 in power, a 2 in map pressure, and a 3 in chase potential. Her power isn't bad, but it's also just not very good. Like, her dash can be very helpful, and her reverse bear traps are a nuisance at best. You'll rarely ever find yourself getting kills with them, and the dash, or you won't find yourself getting as many hits as you think you would. The strength from the Pig comes in her ability to crouch and get up close to survivors real quick, and then uncrouch and get that first hit pretty easily. Because of this, I only give her a 3 in the chasing as well, because she's much better at hitting that surprise hit, and her dash can help her in chases if you know how to use it properly at a loop with high walls, so that way the survivor can't see where you're at. Her map pressure, though, is going to be the same as the clown, the same as Trapper, just because she really has no extra speed or add-ons or anything to get her from generator to generator any faster or more efficiently. Next is the Legion. The Legion, I gave him a 2 for his power, a 3 for his map pressure, and a 3 for his chase potential. Legion's power isn't necessarily great at all. It has its good moments when the survivors are grouped up, but the second survivors split up, his power is just M1ing a survivor. You injure them, and then if you can't find anybody else, you just start the chase after you're getting a cooldown from coming out of your Feral Frenzy. He does, however, have a little bit more map pressure than like the Trapper just because of that speed, and if the survivors are grouped up, that really hurts them because he's just running from point to point, hitting survivor after survivor, getting everyone injured. I gave him a 3 in chasing just because how he's not too bad at getting that first hit, and then, but after that, I mean, he is just kind of a normal M1 killer. And then lastly, with eight points, is Michael Myers, or the Shape. I gave Myers a 3 for his power, a 2 for his map pressure, and a 3 for his chasing. The Evil Within is a fairly strong power on paper, but once you actually put it into practice, it is not as good as it would seem. Being able to one-shot somebody is really effective, but because of that power, you also kind of lose some of like your map pressure. No one has fun when you're just doing a generator and then Michael Myers comes around the corner, pops tier 3, and instantly downs you. But then there's also cases where he pops his power too early and then you just loop him for 60 seconds. So it all depends mostly on how you play with him and if you're able to get that jump on the survivor. He has very little map pressure. The only reason I didn't give him a 1 is because there's another killer with worse map pressure. He has not much going for him. And then chases, the only reason he has a 3 is because of that potential for the one-shot right at the beginning. I mean, even in the mid-chase, he can still one-shot people, so that does give him a bit more of a lead when it comes to chasing. Next, we're going to be moving into the category of the killers who scored 9 points. And first will be Ghostface. Ghostface scored a 4 in his power, a 2 in his map pressure, and a 3 in his chase ability. Ghostface has a very strong power in my opinion. The ability to become undetectable is always a good power, and the fact that he can go in and out of it so efficiently, unlike the Pig or the Wraith, is what makes his power pretty good in my opinion. His ability to stalk as well is also good, because the distance doesn't affect it, and it only takes 2.5 seconds to stalk a survivor. And at any point, if they are 99, you can just pop that survivor and then one-shot them. He doesn't have much map pressure though, because he is just a normal killer with normal walking speed and nothing to get him from point A to point B faster. The only map pressure he might have is the lack of map pressure, if you get what I mean. People are going to be more scared that he's going to be near you than the amount of times he actually is near you. And he scored the same as the Shape with his chase ability just because of that one-shot feature. But other than that, he's just a normal M1 killer when it comes to chases. He is really good, though, at getting that first hit, just like the Pig or the Wraith. Next, we have the Trickster. I gave the Trickster a 3 for his power, a 2 for his map pressure, and a 4 for his chase ability. The Trickster recently got buffed, so, well, he recently got balanced, I guess, if you want to say. It only takes 6 knives now to injure a survivor, and then 6 more knives to down them, compared to the 8, I believe it was before. I believe those, correct me if I'm wrong on those numbers. Um, his power itself isn't very strong. He has 44 knives, and as you throw them, your accuracy starts to decrease and you start to throw up more. He is very similar to the plague or the nurse on the way he works, but the problem is it's hard to explain. His power is good in the good in the 1v1, and that's pretty much it. Which is why he has a 2 in his map pressure, because he just can't get around the map, and his power does not help him at all for map pressure. He, however, is amazing in chases. He's really good in chases. Unless you can get him on like a really tall loop or jungle gym, he's probably going to down you at the loop or the next loop, whichever loop you get too injured. His ability to down people is great, and then once he actually activates his ultimate or his show, he can down survivors ridiculously fast. The survivor can vault, and by the time they're finished vaulting, he's already got 6 knives in their back. So if they're vaulting while injured, there's not much they can do. Next, with 9 points as well, is the Deathslinger. Sorry, let me move these. Deathslinger. Deathslinger got a 4 for his power, a 1 for his map pressure, and a 4 for his chase efficiency. Deathslinger has the spear gun, and it has the potential to be a very strong power for a killer. If you're in the open, if he's got any sort of good aim, you're going to get hit. If you try to drop a pallet and he's nearby, if you're injured, he's going to inflict you with deep wounds. If you're trying to vault, he's going to hit you. If the Deathslinger's got good aim, he's going to hit you in a chase. There's just not much you're going to do about that. That's why he got a 4 for both his chase and his power, because he is really, really good in that 1v1. However, he is a slower killer. He has the same speed as Huntress, so he has awful map pressure. He has absolutely terrible map pressure just because of how slow he is. And if you get a big map, it's going to be very tough. You're going to be doing a lot of walking from generator to generator. You might not have very long chases, but your walking from generator to generator is going to take forever. Okay, so that's all the 9-point killers. We are now going to be moving into the killers with 10 points. Actually, we're going to do 10 and 11 points. So this is going to be a larger category. We're going to be starting off, though, first with Doctor. Doctor's pretty fun to play. You got a 3 in his power, a 3 for his map pressure, and a 4 for his chase potential. His power is nice, and it can be very strong. His static blast is very good for helping you find survivors, and if you combine that with a perk like Whispers, you're almost guaranteed to always get a static blast and a scream from a survivor. And his normal blasts are also very powerful just because he can stop a survivor from doing certain activities for a very short period of time. That is also why his chase score is pretty high. Doctor's almost always going to hit you at a loop. It will take him some time, but he's going to hit you, and he's going to down you. Because all he has to do is keep walking around that loop, shocking you every time he walks around, and you can't drop the pallet, and he's just going to get closer and closer and closer, and then he hits you. And the only reason his map pressure is a little better than most of the killers so far, at a 3 instead of a 2, is because of that static blast and how large he can potentially make his terror radius. It's very oppressive to constantly be getting zapped every few seconds and screaming, because then he knows exactly where you are, and he's probably coming straight for you. Anyways, that is the Doctor with 10 points. Next, we have the Plague. The Plague was hard for me to kind of give solid points to, but I ended up with giving her 4 points for her power, 2 points for her map pressure, and then another 4 points for her chase potential. Originally I was only going to give her 3 for chase, but because of her corrupt or her vile purge, it makes it very hard. So the Wraith's power is really good at getting survivors injured. When she vomits on people, if she vomits on them enough, or they just run around long enough, they will become broken, and that's a great one-shot opportunity for the Plague. But after that, she's just a normal M1 killer. Her main strength comes from her pools and her corrupt purge. I think vile purge is a normal power. Corrupt purge is her special power. Being able to have that range and damage people while also not having to be very accurate is insane. Normally in chases, she's not the best, but when she has that power, she is insane in chases. So instead of giving her like a 5 or a 3, I kind of went in the middle and gave her a 4. However, she's just like every other killer mostly with her map pressure. She just can't get from point A to point B much more quickly than anybody. I'm going to take a sip. I'm going to take a drink real quick. Okay. Next, we have the Cannibal. Ever since Bubba got nerfed, he's been a fairly good killer. I gave him a 4 for his power, a 2 for his his map pressure, and a 4 for his chase potential. It's hard because arguably I believe that Bubba has a better chainsaw ability than Hillbilly. You'll see why he scored lower in just a bit, but his one-shot ability is pretty great. He has 3 charges, and once he charges up and he lets go, he starts sweeping his chainsaw. And if he catches a survivor in that, they're instantly downed. But he can extend his chase or his chainsaw sweeps up to 2 times by pressing the active ability button before his timer on the first sweeps run out. It does have a downside though. If he bumps into an object, he starts swinging his chainsaw around in a tantrum for about 5 seconds. But if someone does run up to you while you're doing that, they get downed. He does get a slight boost of speed when he does as well, so it's not too hard to catch up to survivors. Which is why his chase potential is also great. Or I should say is good, because he got a 4, he didn't get a 5. But it's still pretty good because of that one-shot potential and how easy it is to use the chainsaw. You either chainsaw them, or 9 times out of 10 you're either going to chainsaw them, or you're going to break a pallet. So you're either downing them or burning through resources, because people are going to be dropping pallets like crazy, so you're going to be burning through those resources very quickly. However, he's like most killers and doesn't have much map pressure. The only time I'd consider maybe is if he's a face camper Bubba. But if the survivors are smart, they're going to punish him for that. So that's why he got a 4.24 rating. Next is Nemesis. So Nemesis is, first off, I'm going to give you a score. Nemesis is the first of the killers to score 11 points. He scored a 4 for his power, a 3 for his map pressure, and a 4 for his chase potential. First tier Nemesis isn't all that scary, honestly. And if it wasn't for the zombies, his power would be at a 3. His zombies aren't amazing, but they do come in clutch in a lot of interesting situations. They are good at pushing survivors off of gens, off of totems, off of healing each other, and sometimes if you're lucky, if you can zone the survivor correctly, they'll run right into the zombie's arms. And the tentacle itself isn't bad either. Having that reach that can reach through pallets, over pallets, and even through windows, and even break pallets is pretty great. It only has at top tier, I think, 6 meter range, but using it in a chase will usually guarantee it down. Which is why he got a 4 in his chase potential. because of that ability to reach over obstacles and reach over pallets. So even if survivors drop pallets, there's a huge chance you're still going to hit them over the pallet. Next, we're going to be going with the twins. Now, Charlotte is, well, first off, she scored a 3 for her power, a 4 for her map pressure, and a 4 for chase potential. Being able to turn into Victor isn't something super crazy. It is nice, though. So her power is not ridiculously good, but it's also not bad. So that's why you have a 3, because it's kind of right down the middle. Her map pressure, however, when she hooks a survivor, she can just leave Victor right there and then go off and do what she needs to. And she's got Victor, who's pretty much just a proximity alarm for if anyone's coming for the unhook. And then you can go back to Victor, injure or down the unhooking survivor, and then go over there with Charlotte and finish the job. So that gives her really good map pressure because she's essentially in 2 places at one time, which is not something any other killer can do. The only reason she's got a 4 in her chase is because Victor and how fast he is and how good he is at getting hits and downing survivors. So she is the second killer with an 11 score. Next is going to be... Oh, sorry, I missed a killer. I realized I had missed one. Wraith. I put Wraith above Plague, but below Cannibal. Sorry. So Wraith scored 3 for his power, 4 for his map pressure, and 3 for his chase ability. Ever since Wraith got the few buffs, so that way he had the Windstorm add-ons by default, he's become a much better killer than he was. He almost always guarantees that first hit, because when he comes out of his cloak, he is very fast and has a very large lunge. So if you catch survivors off guard, you're almost guaranteed that hit. His power is not super strong or super oppressive, though, because it does have its drawbacks that are very fair. And if you play right, you can avoid it. Sprint Burst counters his first hit very well. He got a 4, though, because of how fast he is. So he can go from generator to generator real quick. So if you're playing a hit and run style, you're always constantly putting that pressure on everybody everywhere. So that's why you got the 4 there. Then he got a 3 in his chase, only because he's pretty much a normal killer. Sometimes his uncloaking will get you some hits around some loops, but mostly he is good at hitting that first strike. Okay, so now that we got him out the way, I'm sorry, I realized I hadn't put him up here yet. Next will be Hillbilly. Hillbilly got a 4 for his power, a 4 for his map pressure, and a 3 for his chasing ability. Hillbilly's power, in my opinion, is very strong. Being able to use that chainsaw to one-shot people or to just sprint across the map at lightning speeds is very strong. Even if you don't hit somebody, being able to move across the map that fast is a very good ability. He's not necessarily the best in chases like he was because of his new added overheat mechanic. So you can't sit there and constantly rev it to hit a survivor, because if you keep revving, you're going to overheat and the survivor's just going to escape the chase. He has insane map pressure with his ability to just sprint from side to side in seconds. So if you combine that with perks like Tinkerer, he has some of the best map pressure in the game, in my opinion. He can get from point A to point B very quickly. However, like I said, he's not the best in chases now because of his overheat mechanic, but he's a little bit better than some because he does have that one-shot potential. Next is going to be Huntress. She is the top of the 11-point killers. She got a 4 for her power, a 3 for her map pressure, and a 4 for her chase potential. Huntress has 5 hatchets that she's able to throw at survivors, and if you're good with aiming, it's very easy to down survivors quickly. If you can smack somebody with an M1 and then as they're running away hit them with that hatchet, the chase is over in 10 seconds or less. She's also just very good at playing around loops with lower walls or windows because she can throw through the windows and get some really cheeky hits that survivors aren't expecting. I've gotten many hits over top of structures that survivors aren't expecting because it just pretty much grazes their hair. She's not the best though because she does fail at taller loops, and she is slower than most killers, so she does struggle to keep up with survivors. The only reason she has a 3 instead of like a 2 or a 1 for her map pressure is because she has the ability she can throw her hatchets pretty much as far as she wants. So she has the ability, if she's decent with aiming, to hit survivors across the map and apply that pressure. And that closes us out of the B rank. So now we're moving up to A. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, starting at Hillbilly, we were in the top 10. Okay. So next, we're going to go with Demo. I can't believe I actually ended up putting Demo this high. I never would have guessed Demogorgon would be this high on my list. But he's actually an exceptional killer. He scored 12 points overall, with 4 points in each category. So 4 chase, 4 power, and 4 map pressure. His portal, when he traverses the underground, that power, it's good, but it's not the main. I feel like it's not the main focus of his power. His dash is very good in loops. It lets you cover a lot of ground and get hits that you would not normally with any other killer. I'm not sure exactly how far he dashes, but it seems to be around like the 10-meter mark, maybe like 8 meters probably. But and he's got the hitbox the size of a truck when he goes to hit people like that. So there's so many hits that you can get around turns and stuff that you'd probably think you wouldn't, just because you're barely grazing the back of the survivor. He's good on Shack. I think he's actually one of the strongest killers on Shack, because as soon as he comes to that door, he can lunge across Shack. If there's no generator in the way, it's pretty much game over for the survivor. His portals, though, give him good map pressure, because he can just pop up at any generator he wants if he's got a portal placed there already. It's good. He's good for basement camping because of the portals. If you put like Tinkerer on him, he can just go to the portals and the generators that are about to pop, and that just gives him a pretty decent amount of map pressure. Next, another killer who got a 4 in every single category, the Hag. So the Hag has the potential to be higher on this list, but she just doesn't reach it as efficiently, I feel like, as other killers. Her power is very strong. She puts down her traps, and whenever a survivor comes within a certain proximity, it triggers the traps, and she can instantly teleport to that trap. It also snaps the survivor's cameras to the side, so if you place it in loops in certain ways, it can really mess up their pathing. So I feel like her power is good, but because survivors have a way to counter it with flashlights and crouch walking, it's not overpowered, I want to say. It does give her an amazing advantage, though, with map pressure, because if a trap triggers across the map and she can teleport to it, and bam, now she's across the map chasing somebody when nothing was going on at first. She puts them near she put them near hooks, generators, just guarding general areas, and she can even use them in chases to help end the chases super fast. So if the survivor doesn't know there's a trap in a loop, and it just springs on them randomly, they're probably going to get hit, and if they're injured, they're going to be downed. However, the reason she didn't get anything above 4 is because of how counterable her entire power is. So that's the only reason that's preventing her from being higher. Next, with 12 points as well, is the Executioner, or Pyramid Head. So Pyramid Head is one of the first killers to score a 5 in a category. He scored a 4 for his power, a 3 for his map pressure, and a 5 in his chase efficiency. His power is honestly one of the better powers of the game. His Trails of Torment is great at pathing survivors who are really trying to avoid getting hit by it, and then his ability to shoot through walls and stuff and things and whatnot is very powerful. If a survivor is in an animation, like vaulting or dropping a pallet, they're going to get hit. If the pyramid head's just good at guessing through walls, they're going to get hit, which is why that gives him a 5 in his chase ability as well, because if an executioner is playing right, they're going to be guaranteed hits in every single chase. And the reason he has a 3 instead of a 2 for his map pressure is only because of his ability to put people in cages. That saves him so much time, so he can get across the map much more quickly. And his Trails of Torment sometimes can just help with pressure if you have them in random spots through the map. Okay. And that is the last killer who scored an overall of 12 points. Now we're going to the killers who scored a 13. So first, Freddy. Ever since his rework, Freddy's been an oppressive killer. He scored a 4 for power, a 5 for map pressure, and a 4 for chasing ability. His power to put people, his passive sleeping ability now is much better than it was. He no longer has to worry about pulling the survivors asleep. They will either just fall asleep or he can hit them and then they'll fall asleep. And that lets him start to use his dream snares. And his dream snares are really good because they just slow survivors down, and that is huge in a chase, which is why he scored a 4 in his chase as well. Because all you do is you put one on each side of the chain, on the pow of the loop, the survivor runs through it, you get a hit on them. He's like the doctor. He's going to get the hit eventually. Like, there's no stopping him from getting that hit eventually. He has a 5 in his map pressure, though, because he has the ability to teleport to any generator immediately. That is insane. If you pair that with things like Tinkerer, you'll find yourself having a hard time letting gens go. Like, the gens are just not going to be going as fast because you're always going there and interrupting them in the middle of what they're doing, and you can just do it so frequently. But that is why the Nightmare is where he's at. And then the last killer in the A tier is Oni. He was the last killer for 13 points. He receives a 5 for his power, a 4 for his map pressure, and a 4 for his chasing ability. The reason I gave him a 5 for his power is it's not just because of his rush. His rush is amazing. Being able to move as quickly as he does, sliding off of things the way he does, and being able to one-shot people around corners the way he does is amazing. But his blood, the blood drop that survivors drop as well, I feel like is fairly underrated because it gives you a really, really good indication if you lose a survivor of where they just went. He does struggle beginning of the game, but if you can get that first hit, that's when he can start to snowball a bit. He has a 4 for his map pressure because when he is in that power, he can go from end of the map to the end of the map in seconds. The reason he doesn't have a perfect 5 is because it's only with his power, and he doesn't have that 24/7. And then he got a 4 in his chase because, well, it's really good to use the demon rush. When he doesn't have his power, he's just a normal N1 killer, so that prevents him from getting more than a perfect score in his map pressure, to prevents him from getting a perfect score in his map pressure or his chase efficiency. And now, time to go to the S ranks, and I'm sure you know the order that these are going to be going in, but I'm still going to do it anyways. So the first 2 killers both scored a 14 out of 15 points. So first we're going to put Blight. Now Blight is probably one of my favorite killers to play. He's very fun. He scores a 4 for his power, a 5 for his map pressure, and a 5 for his chasing ability. His power itself isn't strong, and it's very buggy at times. I can't count how many times I go to slam into an object and I just bounce right off of it, or I just slide right off of it without getting that bounce. Because then you just lose your rush and the survivor gets so much distance. It also does kind of suck that you lose your power when he gets stunned by a pallet, but that's kind of preventable. His power is really strong, but I don't think it's to the point where it's a perfect power. He has amazing map pressure because just like Oni and Hillbilly, he can get across the map insanely fast, but he can do it all of the time. And he has a 5 for his chasing because he has his power all the time, and that power lets him get around some crazy loops and guarantees a hit in almost any situation. Next is going to be the Nurse. Now the Nurse is a really good killer, but she's probably also the hardest killer to play in the game. She scored a 5 for her power, a 4 in map pressure, and a 5 in chasing ability. She got a 5 in her power and chasing ability because the blink is an amazing power that ignores so many mechanics of the game. The only thing survivors have is loops and pallets, but she eliminates that. It doesn't matter there's a loop, because if it's a good Nurse, she's going to blink through it, and she's going to hit you no matter what you do. She's got 2 blinks, one for the guess and then one for correction. So if you're going against a good Nurse, she's almost always going to get a hit on you with her blinks. It's just, it's very hard to avoid getting hit by a good Nurse. The reason she got a 4 in her map pressure is because of her speed, and even though the blinks do help, it does make her a little slower. She's better than most killers, but she's not as good as like the Blight or Oni. And then lastly, I'm sure you all guessed it. Let me go ahead and switch these. We have the Spirit. The Spirit is the only killer to have scored a perfect score. She has a 5 in all 3 categories. Her phasing ability is bonkers. She moves at insane speeds, and she cannot be seen. She can still see survivors' scratch marks, and she can still hear breathing and grunts of pain. But honestly, not being able to see the survivor isn't that much of a downside. It is very easy to track survivors if you have a headset on. So all you do is hit a survivor, use your power, and you're practically caught up to the survivor again, and they don't know exactly where you're at. And because of this power, it lets her get across the map really fast, and it lets her play loops very well. She can phase at a pallet, and the person has to guess essentially which side of the pallet to drop on, and hope that she's on the other side. Because if you guess wrong, you lose the chase. But if you guess right, you extend the chase by probably one more loop. So there's just, like, you can play around her, but it's hard. A good Nurse is going to put you in the ground 10 games out of 10 out of 10 games. But anyways, that is my tier list based off of my point ranking system. I might do another tier list based on just my own personal opinion. It probably be very similar to this, with just some characters moving up and down in certain places by a few spots. But anyways, let me know your opinions. If you disagree with anything, let me know. And that's it. Have a good day.